Practical Action Southern Africa hosted 2 launch events for the Poor People's Energy Outlook Report 2013 in Zimbabwe and Malawi on the 5th and 12th of March respectively. The well-attended event attracted at least 160 participants from UN agencies, government ministries and departments, civil society organizations, private sector, and academic institutions in both countries. In Zimbabwe, Kudzai Marwanidze, the acting regional director for Practical Action Southern Africa, gave the opening remarks, welcoming all present and setting the tone for the event.
On behalf of Practical Action, I would like to welcome you all to this 3rd edition of the Poor People Energy Outlook launch. The very first launch was actually done in 2010 for some of you who happened to participate in that one. I really want to welcome you all and also encourage you to be as free and frank as possible. This is an event to share ideas, and as such we would welcome as many of those ideas as possible from you.
In Malawi, Barbara Banda, the Director for Environment Africa, performed this function.
I would like to welcome you to this important occasion where we are participating in the launch of the Poor People's Energy Outlook Report for 2013 in Malawi. This report has been launched elsewhere in the region, but we are privileged as Malawi to be also part of this world thinking about how energy reaches the poor people. I'm here on behalf of civil society. As Environment Africa, we are part of a group of like-minded NGOs that met in December to look at the sustainable energy for all vision that is being promoted by UNDP, specifically the Secretary General, where the Secretary General is advocating for access to energy by 2030, and there are indicators there that have been alluded to or agreed by several heads of state at the Rio 2012 meeting. And Malawi is one of those countries that have signed into that agreement. So again, we are very happy that our country took the opportunity to be first, or among the first countries, to accept that energy is critical for development, and how it got left out in the Sustainable Development Goals was a late rude awakening fact. But having said that, we are very thankful as civil society that there is a platform where as civil society we are saying we are the third pillar in making sure that we achieve that access to energy. In fact, doubling the access that people have to energy, doubling the efficiency that energy is being produced at the moment. And the stakeholders that are already players and very prominent are government, private sector, parastatals. Those are the energy providers, the policy makers. But what was missing in that discourse was the voice of the people who are actually the consumers of the energy. And as civil society, that's our role, to come in and say, are the agreements that are being made by our governments being respected and implemented in time and accordingly? And we are going to make concerted efforts to make sure that in Malawi, our voices are heard very loudly and clearly.
Dr. Alex Zinanga, the UNDP Assistant Resident Representative, gave the keynote address for Zimbabwe, whilst Yuta Borges, the Malawi GIZ Director, delivered the address in Malawi.
It is with great pleasure that us as UNDP take part in this launch of the Poor People's Energy Outlook of 2013, a publication produced by Practical Action. This year's theme, Energy for Community Services, is particularly relevant for UNDP. Poverty reduction and achievement of Millennium Development Goals are at the heart of UNDP's work in over 172 countries globally where UNDP has a presence on the ground. And one of our key strategies for poverty reduction is energy and environment. So access to energy forms one of our core business. And most of you recall that last year in Brazil, the United Nations Secretary General launched a groundbreaking initiative, Sustainable Energy for All. This is at the Rio Plus 20 Summit. The UN Secretary General in particular highlighted that it was important that we mobilize urgent global action towards access to energy, improving energy efficiency, and increasing the global mix of renewable energy. The vision statement of the Secretary General states that sustainable development is the imperative of the 21st century. It will be difficult, if not impossible, to provide basic social services to communities, create new business and market opportunities, new jobs, and new possibilities for human development without sustainable energy for all. The Poor People's Energy Outlook reports for 2011-2012 focused on household energy and their productive energy respectively. I would like to commend Practical Action for making such a noble choice to focus the 2013 report on energy for community services. That is health, education, public institutions, infrastructure. Indeed, a community approach and community benefits have a huge impact on overall poverty reduction and sustainable development.
My presentation will actually cover a very brief introduction in terms of where we're coming from, and then talk about the highlights that are contained in the book itself in terms of the total energy access concept and the reasons behind that. The book itself, as Innocent has already said, was launched first in 2010, and then we had a second launch in 2012. So today sees a third event. We're actually launching the third edition of the book. Essentially, the book is really focusing on the various forms of energy needs, particularly focusing on the disadvantaged communities. It really examines what it means to have access to energy, particularly looking at the various needs that disadvantaged households and communities have, looking at particularly energy for cooking, mechanical power as critical needs alongside electricity. But we also say that we also need to pay focus on community services and also livelihoods activities, as they also equally require to be driven by energy in a sustainable way. So the book also establishes some standards, minimum standards that we think can then ensure access to energy for really the people in terms of household and also services. So that we really cover all the various needs and utilities that are required by poor people. So this really essentially really brings us to the concept of total energy access, because we say we're not just looking at isolated kind of needs, but we're really looking at all the requirements, the household, including the services that are provided within the community itself, including the livelihood needs in total, so that we have decent opportunities for development in poor communities.
So 5 key things that I'm trying to talk in this presentation are: we need to enhance the conceptual understanding of energy. And you'll see later in the slides that I'm talking about energy has been mistaken to mean electricity, which is not. And so the second message we're trying to communicate is we need to diversify energy delivery models and also provide poor people with alternatives or a variety of the energy mix. Thirdly, we're looking at we need to prioritize energy access and mainstream it, and we need all actors. Often people say, no, I'm in the education sector. I don't have anything to do with energy access. But a school without electricity, the children will sit the same examination as those that are having full-time electricity and are able to have more hours of reading and study. And so we're looking at mainstreaming. So we're not trying to convert everyone to become a player in the energy sector, but you can do something to integrate energy in your programming. We need data collection. There's a lot of data that we need to make policy decisions on energy. And most of that data is not around. Who is investing in energy in Malawi? Even capturing energy, issues of access when people do their projects through solar or off-grid systems. There's no organized system for collecting data. And lastly, we need to support investments in community-based systems. If we wait for the grid extension, it might take 20 or 50 years for some rural poor households to get connected to electricity. We need to start looking at alternatives. So just providing a little bit of context, you find that poorer countries, those whose development index is the lowest, are the ones also who have the highest numbers of people that have limited or no access to energy. So if you look at the sub-region, you find that the only outlier is South Africa. But just taking a case of Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe, you find that these are countries that are very low on the Human Development Index, with Zimbabwe being the least ranked. And there's a correlation between development and access to energy. So if you look at the OECD countries, they're the most developed and the ones that are also having almost 100% access to energy for their populations. That people should start considering energy access in its broadest sense, where energy for a household means more than lighting, where energy is useful to a household for even livelihood and enterprise purposes. And that an energy supply mix may include electricity, but also should think about issues of energy for cooking. Because when you electrify everybody, it does not automatically guarantee that everyone has security for energy for cooking. A lot of the urban populations in Southern Africa still use biomass-based energy sources. The whole point of charcoal, continue to be produced and having environmental and forestry people still mad that people are producing charcoal. There's a huge demand in urban centers. So energy access goes beyond electricity, and we need to start looking at unpacking, the variety and the energy alternatives that people have.
For the Zimbabwe launch, the major highlight of the event was the presentation from Mr. Ndoa Senga, a representative from one of the communities where Practical Action Southern Africa implemented the regional hydro project. He gave a compelling testimony of how access to electricity has transformed his community.
I have the pleasure to present the success story of Chipendeke Micro Hydro Scheme, which was constructed by the community in partnership with Practical Action. The community contributed locally available resources that include support manpower, mobilization of local available materials, e.g. stones, sand, and crushed stone, where Practical Action tendered and purchased cement, pencil pipes, generator turbine, power cables, and transformers. The scheme of Chipendeke is abstracting water from Wengezi, Chitora River, the source of water. As a community, we have devised a tariff system that we use for selling the electricity to our consumers. For domestic use, the consumer pays 16 cents per kilowatt hour. For business, they pay 32 cents per kilowatt hour. The store and the clinic, they pay 10 cents per kilowatt hour because those are social services to us. It was a pipe dream for Chipendeke community to be connected to the national grid because the power grid that supplies that area is 20 kilometers away from Chipendeke. And in Chipendeke, we had a lot of problems, especially the clinic there whereby we had to store our vaccines at the clinic that is 20 kilometers away from us. So on the project impact now, we are talking of all the education part of it. We are now able to retain still the teaching staff. We started with a staff of 7 teachers, but to date now we've got 17 teachers that are already in the school. Improved lighting has enabled long hours of study. And this has improved educational outcomes in the school. Use of the state-of-the-art teaching aids, e.g. videos, radio lessons, slides, and computers is already in the school. Also, there's an increase in the enrollment of the school because we started with about 395 children, and to date, we have about 535 children. And already we are constructing additional blocks to cater for these children. And also, we already established secondary school. The establishment of a secondary school is already underway. On the health sector, the clinic is now able to operate 24/7. Maternity delivery system is now 24 hours due to better quality lighting. Whereas previously, they used to use candles and paraffin lamps when maternity delivery. Sterilization of medical equipment. We are now able to refrigerate our vaccines. Business. Entertainment center. Now the business center is now entertainment center. Use of radios, television, videos, players. That's the talk of the day. New products are on the market because the business communities now they are able to store fish, chicken, meat, cold drinks, cold beer. And also at the growth point, there's a lot of development going at the business center. Because people now are developing stands, focusing on establishing a cottage industry center that will provide light engineering facilities such as welding, peanut butter machines, oil processing machines, complementing irrigation agriculture, which is one of the major activities in the community. Income that is now being generated from the process that the consumer pay is for the operation and maintenance of the system, and also for the expansion of the network, because you still need a lot to do. We still need to expand the network so that we have a lot of consumers in the upgrading of the system, so that we provide an effective and efficient service to our customers. So in a nutshell, I think this is what is for Chipendeke.
As part of the events, panel discussions on how to encourage greater investment and integration of energy for community services were conducted. Lasten Mika, a renewable energy specialist, and Clement Kalonga, the park regional manager, facilitated the discussions in Zimbabwe and Malawi, respectively.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. With me, I have quite distinguished participants. Thank you for coming. And it's basically the discussion is around how we can create a better understanding of the subject matter. I think the subject matter is basically how do you improve access to electricity in general, and in particular, this particular subject is hinging upon public institutions, clinics, schools. How can we encourage greater investment in similar schemes like the scheme in Chipendeke? And how can other stakeholders, what sort of role can other stakeholders also play in terms of really catalyze expansion or the uptake of such technologies? I think there's quite a great need. If we look at the statistics currently, and I think from RIA, they agree that currently we have 65% of public institutions, clinics and schools that are currently electrified. So there's still some bit more to go, about 35% to go. So that's equivalent to, I think what they've done, it's about 6,500 institutions so far electrified. But we still have a whole lot more out of the estimated 10,000 or so institutions to be electrified.
From the point of view of civil society, we believe that if people are not moving together, if you've got a certain set of people within the community who are not at the same level of development with the rest of the people, then you are still not a developed country. You are not developing. For you to be able to be developed, then you have to move with everyone. And so the focus should also be on poor people and not just the other people who can actually afford the services that we are talking about.
This means that the private sector has got a very important role to play for us to go forward. We might have some form of research or whatever that we can do, but we need the financial resources to push this forward. And how are we now going to get these financial resources? That is the crux of the matter. One issue that just struck my mind is that if you look at corporate social responsibility that many of our private companies are maybe participating in, they are contributing significant amount of money in education and health, and in particular in Zimbabwe. That is very correct and very right. But we are saying we have to replay maybe that table say, if they would maybe invest in energy, maybe at schools. I know buying books and stationery, that's excellent. But let's suppose they take that 1 million that they're investing it in energy.
What the poor people are saying is that the government do come up with different policies, but they seem not to be translated in the language that the people do understand. I'm happy that you have mentioned that some NGOs are doing that work.
But at central government level, there's a gap whereby these policies are actually in offices, but they're not trickling down to the people. So what is required is actually to ensure that these policies are actually translated in the language that the local man or woman do understand.
The first thing is that what we seriously need to think about is that policy instruments are not synonymous with implementation or adoption of any agenda. I think we need to start thinking outside the box. Most of what we think is that because X, Y, Z is not in the policy, that's why there is no implementation, that is why there is no commitment. But I don't think that is the case, because the two are totally different things.
When it comes to research, there are a lot of components involved. We have the actual personnel and the infrastructure component, and of course the actual organization. On the organization part, of course, currently the National Commission for Science and Technology is taking lead, and there are other institutions like the one that was set under the barrier removal, the Test and Training Center, which of course is with us, Test and Training Center for Renewable Energy Technologies, under the Department of Energy Studies in Zuzu University. As I said, we have personnel on ground, but the infrastructure part of it, we can't say we're there. Because even when it comes to technologies, it's very difficult to test. Even, of course, maybe even our friends in the stores, they will not have actual tests in here probably. They may test maybe just the cooking test, the water boiling test, but the other equipment will not be available. So basically, I don't know how the government or everyone in here can assist, but it definitely we need dedicated research centers in probably renewable energy and other energy technologies also. Take our friends, let's say in Cape Town, of course currently under the International Renewable Energy Agency, they are trying to work with KTH to support the Southern Africa. So probably maybe if we can work together with the International Renewable Energy Agency and Practical Action, some of the things we do teach, but we also learn from our friends in Practical Action. I've been checking, of course, some of their documents, but then we had problems to access or contact with them. Because as a center, we are supposed to have links with Practical Action, then it was in Zimbabwe, then we are also supposed to be linked with the Botswana Testing Center, but we failed to link. The other challenge we have, of course, this is common for Malawians. Some things are more like political. I'm sorry, the political thing is real. Danida started measuring, I think, some wind data, but when the Danish were chased, even those masts were even removed. So instead of, by now we should have data for about 10 years, now we're going to start now with the Scottish support. But by now we should have wind data for about 10 years or so. So probably if we can work as just focusing on development, that would be fine. But currently we can't say we have enough research capacity in terms of infrastructure. Thanks.
Yeah, on one of those other discussions that we had, you also mentioned the issue of funding. I hope, what's the main issue in terms of funding? Is it funding for the students or funding for the research activities?
Yeah, what we are saying is, of course, currently, maybe let me just mention for the Scottish support where they will have some MPhils. The MPhils, of course, they are supporting people to do some research. Of course, we have different partners. But as Malawi, you find that every time, maybe, I'll take an example in our case. Every time we put a budget for infrastructure, of course, I understand today I've known that the first is revenue, the third also is revenue. And the National Commission was saying even the fifth is revenue. Every time we wanted to have a test center, but you can't find funding. Every time we include in the budget, it's ripped off. I don't know how it happens, but anyway, maybe it's priority thing. So if we can have other donors maybe to support the sustainable energy for all, it will also assist. Because research is where you can generate information and knowledge. So if we can't put research as a priority, yeah, we can be doing projects, but at one point they will come to an end. Thanks.
Banakona, the mic comes to you. what are the key opportunities and challenges related to energy access initiatives? You are involved in clean stoves, energy saving stoves.